longtime advisor, President Trump, Michael Caputo. He joins me now. Michael, thank you for making time for us to talk to us about this. You were the first known person to file for access to these funds because you were targeted by the Biden administration. Can you tell our viewers your story and how lawfare and retaliation impacted you and your family?
Sure. Thanks for having me on. It's a real honor. You know, I had, during my career, the United States government sent me over to Russia to meddle in their elections in the 90s. And I specialize in Russia, Ukraine, the region. And the United States government has been paying me, put me through school on this topic for many, many years. But of course, when Donald Trump, an old friend, decided to run for president in 2016, and I joined his campaign, I was, I guess, too sexy for Robert Mueller because I was in Russia for so many years working for the United States. And they went after me because they were going after the president. Now, mind you, none of us did anything to collude with Russia. We were such a nascent campaign with, an upstart candidate that we couldn't collude with the diner across the street from Trump Tower. But at the same time, they needed to make excuses for Hillary Clinton having embarrassing loss to Donald Trump. It went on and on. I had no idea it was going on, but it really impacted my life when it became clear when James Comey name-checked me during a House hearing in 2017. Everything fell apart from that point forward. We were under surveillance for the entire time. I'm quite certain that continued for many other people, Roger Stone, Carter Page, and et cetera. But what really truly happened to all of us is really serious, devastating financial punishment. I lost my business. I lost my children's college funds. All of our savings went into deep debt. And frankly, they broke my life completely. They searched for everything, found nothing. And we lost everything.
So you blew the whistle on the Russia hoax, and then they came after you, is essentially what happened. All of this.
And again, too, with the Ukraine hoax.
All of this outrage, Michael, from Democrats is to be expected. But Republicans knew that this was a concept, and the president's team had discussed it for several years. It wasn't a new idea. Give us a little bit of the history here.
Sure. After I went down with cancer when I was assistant secretary at HHS during COVID. It was a really rough ride. But afterward, I rejoined the campaign on the policy team. And one of the things that I was working on, among others, and other people helping, was the anti-weaponization policy portfolio. Started that in August of 2023. And we first started talking about using the judgment fund to repay people and give restitution to people who were destroyed by political weaponization of the federal government was probably October 2023. It was discussed ad nauseum through the entire policymaking process. And in Milwaukee during the convention, all the best lawyers in the Republican Party were talking about it on the platform committee. This is not new. But, I was out of government for a long time. And when I woke up that Monday with this announcement, I hadn't heard about how they were going to roll it out. We always knew we were going to have to take more than one swing at this ball. And we're going to come at it again.
So, Michael, how did this go from something that had good intentions, that Republicans, were on board with, to now Republicans, particularly those in the Senate, coming out against it?
Well, the Republican senators are looking for any reason at all to oppose Donald Trump. And from my perspective, if they go ahead and chew my family up even more just to satisfy their bloodlust in politics, we know who they are, right? I think the Anti-Weaponization Fund, as they called it, was just another target for creeps like Tom Tillis and others. But, this is not about it. This is the judgment fund, Tom. You know this. I've heard you talk about it. It's not what the Anti-Weaponization Fund is, a plan put together by Main Justice to give access to people for the judgment fund, because it costs money to hire attorneys and try to get restitution from this big, fund that's been around for, 70 years. And all the president's team is trying to do is give the people who can't afford attorneys access to get the restitution they deserve.
The big issue, it seems, over these last few weeks was whether January 6 rioters who committed violent offenses would be eligible for access to the fund. What is your position on that? And has that also kind of got confused in the messaging and the rollout here?
Well, I'm a communications guy, and rollouts are like onslaughts in battle. You go at each other with your swords and shields, and the last one standing after the rollout are the winners. The winners here are the Democrats. The fact is, when we were discussing the judgment fund, and in this case, the framing is the Anti-Weaponization Fund, back in Milwaukee during the convention, the room full of attorneys, everyone talking about, well, what do we do if, with the J6ers? And they said, well, everyone, almost to a man and to a woman, opposed giving restitution to someone who committed a violent felony.
Right.
The question is who did and who didn't. And that sorting is what the access is all about. What the president's team was trying to do is put into place a commission that could sort those things out. Mm-hmm. But in fact, that commission is not necessary. We have a judgment fund. It paid Peter Strzok and Lisa Page $2 million. It can help people who were destroyed by political weaponization.
Michael, it seems that this has now kind of been put on the back burner. You said it's probably going to take a couple of swings at the bat to do this. Do you think that before President Trump's second term is over, those who were targeted will be able to have access to some form of restitution or compensation?
Actually, I'm telling you, I'm completely certain of it. I was in this talking about weaponization policy when we first started doing so. I'm completely confident in the president and his team. And frankly, it looks like Todd Blanche is the guy to bring this football across the goal line. This swing and miss is not the fault of the president or the Department of Justice. We have to recalibrate, come back to the end of the batter's box, and get ready to swing again. And maybe not swing at a Democrat curve or whatever it is. But I can tell you this, after being spied on during Russiagate, and again, from the entire Biden administration, the FBI was spying on me, it's been proven, for the first year of the new Trump administration. Mm-hmm. We got to get to the bottom of this, and the families that were destroyed are going to be remunerated. They're going to get restitution. The president promised me this. I believe him, and I think Todd Blanche is the guy to get it done.
Well, Michael, I know it's been a very rough few years for you and your family. I am glad that you were well. I know that you've had some health challenges in the midst of all of this as well, but I do hope that this works out for you and many others who were wrongly targeted by our government. Michael Caputo.
Thank you very much. And for your audience, you too can beat cancer. Thank you very much.
Michael Caputo, thank you so much.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.